हरिः ओम् नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अष्टाध्यायी परिचयः इत्यस्य अद्य 47तमः पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे सुबन्तप्रक्रियायां प्रत्ययादेशाः कथं भवन्ति इत्यस्मिन् विषये सूत्रैः सह किञ्चित् अधीमहे। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। अस्माकं वर्गस्य द्वे प्रयोजने अष्टाध्याय्याः आहत्य षट्शतस्य सूत्राणां व्याख्यासहितम् उदाहरणसहितं च अध्ययनं, तथा च अष्टाध्याय्याः प्रथमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य द्वितीयपादस्य च कण्ठस्थीकरणम्। प्रारभामहे। सुबन्तप्रकरणस्य अध्ययनं प्रचलत् अस्ति। तत्र अद्य सुबन्तप्रक्रियायां सुप् प्रत्ययस्य आदेशाः कथं विधीयन्ते तस्मिन् विषये विस्तरेण चिन्तनं कुर्मः। So we are going to learn lots of sutras in today's class, around 12 sutras. All these sutras are extremely simple. 1122 line meaning is basically pratyayanam adeshaha. So a pratyay will be given and its adesha will be given, and it's as simple as that. It's one-to-one mapping. Very little shastra or very little reading between the lines is to be done. But before we start with the discussion of today's class, I wanted to spend at least first 30-35 minutes on discussing the stuff that we have discussed so far. There have been lots and lots of discussion on our WhatsApp group. There are some unanswered questions over there. And even before we jump over there, I want to teach one sutram which sadly I missed out while teaching class number 45, that is the class on the Nadi Samnya and Ghi Samnya. So let me quickly mention what we learned and what we missed out, and then I'll just teach what is missed. So in class number 45, we talked about Nadi Samnya and Ghi Samnya. The sequence of the sutras was that there is a sutram called Yustriakhyo Nadi and there is a sutram called Nitirhasvascha. These two sutras define the Nadi Samnya. Yustriakhyo Nadi gives the Nadi Samnya for the Dirgha Ikaranta and Dirgha Ukaranta Nitya Strilinga words, whereas Nitirhasvascha gives the Nadi Samnya for the Hrasva Ikaranta and Hrasva Ukaranta Strilinga words. This Nadi Samnya is only in presence of the Nit Pratyayas, that is Chaturthi Ekvachan, Panchami Ekvachan, Shashti Ekvachan, Saptami Ekvachan. Only these four Pratyayas, and there also this Nadi Samnya is given optionally. Then we talked about the sutras that do certain karyas on the Nadi Samnya. So we have Hrasva Nadyapo Nuta. The Nadi Samnyakasya Angasya Shashti Bhavachanasya Pratyepare Dirghaha Bhavati. Then we have Ambartha Nadyo Hrasvaha. Nadi Samnyasya Angasya Sambuddhi Ekvachane Pare Hrasvadeshaha Bhavati. Then we have An Nadyaha. Nadi Samnyakasya Angasya Nit Pratyayaha Yaha Vidhiyate. तस्य प्रत्ययस्य आट इति आद्यवयव रूपेण आगमः विधीयते. And then we talked about ङेराम नद्याम्नीभ्यः नदी सम्यकात् विहितः सप्तमी एकवचनस्य ङी प्रत्ययः तस्य आम इति आदेशः भवति. Now if you consider a prakriya like mati plus ङी, सप्तमी एकवचन form of mati, in the Nadi Samnya Paksha, when Mati gets the Nadi Samnya, on the face of it, it appears that you can apply Ngeram Nadyam Nibhya because Mati is a Nadi Samnyaka word. There is a Ni Pratyaya. Therefore, the Ni Pratyaya should get an Am Adesha, and there doesn't seem to be anything wrong in applying Ngeram Nadyam Nibhya. Well, there is actually nothing wrong in a limited frame of reference. However, what happens is, if you consider the entire picture of Ashtadhyayi, there is a sutram that comes immediately, one or two sutras after Ngeram Nadyam Nibhyaha. So here is a 73116. Here is a 73116 Ngeram Nadyam Nibhyaha. And two sutras later, there is a sutram called Aut. 73118 Aut. We are not discussing this sutram because this sutram is required only for specific words like Sakhi and Pati. Only for these two specific words. Both of them are not in our list of 70 words. but only for these two specific words, Sakhi and Pati, this Aut Sutram is required. But it so happens, and I'm not going to go in any of the details, but it so happens that for the Rasva Ikaranta and Rasva Ukaranta words like Mati or like Dhenu, Aut Sutra blocks Ngeram Nadyam Nibhyaha. Again, let me repeat this. I'm not going to go in the details. How does it block? What happens? How is out sutra applied? What is the meaning of that sutram? Nothing is in the scope. All that I'm going to tell you is for the Rasva Ikaranta words like Mati and Buddhi, Shakti and so on, and for Rasva Ukaranta words like Dhenu and so on, Neram Nadyam Nibhyaha, which can technically convert the Ni Pratyaya to Am, is somehow blocked by the Auta Sutram, and therefore Neram Nadyam Nibhyaha cannot be used. And therefore, in order to do exactly the same thing, that is conversion of Ni Pratyaya to Am, for the words like Mati and Dhenu, Panini Maharshi has created a new sutram called Idudbhyam immediately after Neram Nadyam Nibhyaha. So the Ngeram Nadyam Nibhya and Idudbhyam have exactly the same task, conversion of Ni Pratyaya to Am. The only difference being the Ni Pratyaya to Am conversion by Ngeram Nadyam Nibhya is for Dirgha Ikaranta words like Nadi and Vadhu, and by Idudbhyam it is for Rasva Ikaranta words like Mati and Dhenu. That's all that I'm going to discuss right now, and therefore to be technically correct, when you want to write the prakriya for Mati plus Am, that is Mati plus Ni getting converted to Am, that conversion has to be done not by Giram Nadyam Nibhya, but by Idudbhyam. So that's fundamentally the point that I wanted to discuss, which I missed out. I discussed it on the group, but I want to have it in the recorded manner as well. So I have introduced this Idudbhyam Sutram in the list, and I have shifted all the sutras one ahead. Therefore, the sutra numbers are going to be slightly changed, but that's not a big concern. So we have this Sutram Idudbhyam. I'm showing the sutra discussion using Padacheda, Anuvrutti and so on. So Anuvrutti Adhikara Sahitam Sutram Idudbhyam Angadbhyam, It plus Ut, Rasva Ikara and Rasva Ukara, Tabhyam Angabhyam Nadyaha, Nadi Samnya is still there. So Mati and Dhenu are still going to be Nadi Samnyaka, but instead of the Dirgha Ikaranta words is just the sutra talking about Rasva Ikaranta words. So Idudbhyam Angabhyam Nadyaha Nye Am. Rasva Ikaranta Rasva Ukaranta Nadi Samnyakat Angat Parasya Ni Pratyasya Am iti adeshaha bhavati. So here is the example. Mati plus Ni becomes Mati plus Am. Same prakriya. The prakriya is not different. Just the sutram changes. From Mati plus Ni, you get Mati plus Am by Idudbhyam. Adnadyaha iti adagamaha iko yanachi Matyam iti bhavati. And the explanation is given. Rasva ikaranta shabdat, rasva ukaranta shabdat vihitasya Ni pratyasya Ngeram Nadyam Nibhya इत्यनेन आम आदेशे प्राप्ते औत् इति अग्रिम सूत्रेण तस्य बाधः संभवति तादृशं मा भूत् इत्युक्ते that blocking should not block creation of आम आदेश इति ज्ञापयितुं पाणिनिना ह्रस्व इकारान्तानां ह्रस्व उकारान्तानां च शब्दानां विहितस्य नि प्रत्ययस्य अनेन सूत्रेण पुनः आम आदेशः उक्तः अस्ति. So that's all that you have to understand over here, and therefore while writing the prakriya of Muni or Dhenu Saptami Ekvachanam, you should be using the sutram Idudbhyam rather than the sutram Ngeram Nadyam Nibhyaha. Any questions on this particular discussion? Okay, Agre Gachamaha. So there are a couple of more doubts that were asked on the group. So I wanted to go through them and then we will start today's discussion. So first question was Nadi plus Ni ityatra, and the same question can be asked for say Mati or Dhenu also. So Nadi plus Ni ityatra Ngeram Nadyabhibhyaha ittenena Ni pratyase Am adeshah adau karaniyah उत 73112 आण नद्यः इत्यनेन नि प्रत्ययस्य आट आगमः आदौ करणीयः. And then there was some discussion about is the purvatva paratva to be respected, is there a vipratishedha and so on. So the basic point to understand over here is that the Purvatva Paratva, or rather interaction between the two sutras, really matters when these sutras are actually conflicting together. What is happening over here is that there is a ni pratyaya. One sutram is telling an adesha on ni pratyaya, which is am. Other sutra is not telling an adesha, it is telling an agama, which is at. Agama does not replace the original entity, it just comes and sits before that entity. Both of these are Angakaryas, they are present in 7.3, which means you will have to do both. Now, whether you do am first and then art, or whether you do art first and then am, is absolutely not going to matter. Therefore, you can choose whichever sequence you want. The general convention is to do adeshas first and then agamas, not because of purvatva paratva, but because a general convention that is followed everywhere in Ashtadhyayi, that adeshas take precedence over agamas and other insertions. Therefore, general convention, you don't ask me to quote any paribhasha or anything like that. There is no such paribhasha. Just as a general understanding convention, you do the adesha first. So you convert ni to am and then you do agama. What happens is there is a little bit of additional shastra over there, that when you do this adesha, there is an am adesha and now two agamas compete with each other. There is art agama by Anadyaha and there is nut agama because of ama pratyaya. So there is an am pratyaya possible, rasvanadyapo nutta ityanena. So there is an am pratyaya here. So rasvanadyapo nutta forces a nut agama also. There is a competition between that, and then by paratva art agama wins. There is a vipratishedha over there, but that is a shastra vishaya, we don't need to worry about it. In this particular context, just apply the am adesha first, after that do an art agama. That's how the prakriya is to be conventionally written. But these are not conflicting sutras, so there is no need to worry about the vipratishedha or purvatva paratva in general. There is another question. Ekasyam eva prakriyayam dvivaram padasamnya sambhavati va. So marut plus bhyam ityatra. So yes, of course, you can have two different sutras giving padasamnya on two different entities. Nobody stops you from that. So in case of marut plus bhyam, the entire entity marut plus bhyam, as soon as the bhyam pratyay is added, becomes a subanta. Subanta means which ends in supa pratyaya. As soon as the bhyam pratyay is added, there is a sup pratyay at the end. You don't need to wait about angakaryas and pratyadeshas and varnamelanam and so on. Right in the first step of the prakriya, suptingandam padam will make it a padam. Who is becoming the padam? Marut plus bhyam, this entire entity is becoming a padam. And then once the bhyam pratyay is added, because the bhyam pratyay is bhakaradi, therefore by swadishva sarvanamasthane, marut is also going to be a padasamyaka, but that's a different sutram altogether. So you have two different sutras and you have two different entities. Both entities are becoming padasamyaka by two different sutras. So that's the answer to this question. Ekasyam eva prakriyayam dvivaram padasamya avashyam sambhavati. The third question was marut plus bhyam ityatra jashtvasya sutram kim? Sudhavalli ji.
Mahodaya.
Namaste.
Here Marut or Vanij or Bhyam, even though if you don't do that Swadishwa Padasanya, Swadishwa Sarvanamasthane, because Bha is Jalvarnam, Jashvarnam, so we get after that only Jashwantam is taking place. Is it necessary that that Padasanya is necessary for that?
Correct. So that's exactly the next question which I just wanted to explain and you raised your hand. Marut plus bhyam ityatra jashtvasya sutram kim? Shall I do the padasamnya and apply jhalan jashonte? Or what? Why do I bother with the padasamnya? I just apply jhalam jashi. Is that what you were and wanted to ask?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So I I was a little surprised. There has been significant discussion on this topic in the group, but not even a single person understood or recollected one fundamental thing over here. So this is like Baby steps of Vyakarana. 8 to 39 and 8 453 are in the Asiddha Kanda, and therefore 8 453 is Asiddha towards 8 to 39. Therefore, if there is a scope of 8 to 39, you do not have a choice. You must make a Padasamya and apply 8 to 39. Unless 8 to 39 is either applied or denied, you cannot move ahead to 8 453. Such a simple answer, and there were like days and days of discussion on the group, but this was not answered by anybody. So please clear up your basics before you start learning anything ahead. So obviously there will be padasamnyayam satyayam jhalanjashonte iti tripadyaha adisthena sutrena jashtvam tasya krute tripadyaha agrimam sutram asiddham asti. Next, यत्र द्वयोः सूत्रयोः मध्ये विप्रतिषेधः नास्ति तत्र किं सूत्रम् आदौ प्रयोक्तव्यम्. So there was a question over here. I think this question was related to that आण नद्या, this one, nadi plus ngeram nadyam nibhyah versus आण nadyah and so on. So actually what happens is, when you have two sutras conflicting, vipratished is the last step that you worry. There is actually a paribhasha which tells us in which order the sutra resolution has to be done. So you check utsarga apavada relationship, then you check antaranga bahiranga relationship, then you check nitya anitya relationship, and eventually at the end you check vipratishedha, that is purva para relationship. And if none of these relationships apply, then it simply means that sutras are not overlapping, which means, for example, one sutra's domain is say Adi Varna and other sutra's domain is say Antya Varna, something like that. So because if sutras are actually overlapping and if there is a situation of a conflict, then there will always be either Utsarga Apavada or Antaranga Bahiranga or Nitya Anitya or Vipratishedha. So यदि द्वयोः सूत्रयोः मध्ये विप्रतिषेधः नास्ति, अस्य कः अर्थः इति चेत् द्वयोः सूत्रयोः मध्ये सम्बन्धः एव नास्ति. So if there is absolutely, because if there is an overlap, there will be vipratished. What is vipratished? केषुचित् स्थलेषु एकत्र योग प्राप्तिः, केषुचित् स्थलेषु पृथक् रूपेण प्राप्तिः. That is the definition of vipratished. यदि द्वयोः सूत्रयोः मध्ये विप्रतिषेधः नास्ति, तर्हि एकं सूत्रम् अस्मिन् स्थले, अपरं सूत्रम् अस्मिन् स्थले, which is exactly what was happening in case of ngeram nadyam nibhyah and आण nadyah. Ngeram nadyam nibhyah was acting on the pratyaya. Aण nadyah was acting before the pratyaya. So two different places, and therefore there is no question of any kind of conflict. So this sutram, this question doesn't need to be answered. Whichever sutra you apply first, it's going to be eventually the same thing. In such a case, there is a general recommendation in the Shastra that if there is an Adesha, you apply it first, or if there is a Parasutra, then you apply it first. That's a general recommendation, but it will not, it's basically to make sure that all students write the Prakriya in the same way. But beyond that, there is not a big significance. But you first have to confirm that there is no Vipratishedha. Sometimes there is some kind of remote Vipratishedha which you are not aware of. So first confirm that there is absolutely no relationship, and only then you can choose whichever sutram to apply in this particular context. Okay, any further questions associated with anything that has been taught? Ratnakarji.
Okay. Actually, one fundamental question, basic question rather. In Marut plus Bhyam, there is Marut Bhyam iti Rupam Siddhyati. Kintu Marut plus Gasi ityatra Kevalam Marutaha eva Rupam Siddhyati. We are not going to do any Jalam Desham or Swadishu Swarana. Is that because there was no pada like Marutaha? We are not going to do that.
No, in Marut plus Gasi or Marut plus Gasa, Marut does not get Pada Samnya, right? Because there is Ajadi Pratyay in front. Nasi is Asa. You have to get rid of its Samyaka letters. So it is Asa. So it is Ajati Pratyay. So this is not a Pada Samyaka. Jhalan Jashonte is only applicable for Pada Samyaka entities. And Jhalam Jashi requires a Jash letter in front. This has Akara in front and this is not a Pada Samyaka. So the Jashto cannot happen.
Fine.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, now if there are no questions, there is some unasked advice that I want to give to everybody. So this is general advice or some fundamental pitfalls that I have seen in the discussion on the group. typing mistake in fundamental. Okay. I don't participate in these discussions, but I closely follow this, and I see some kind of pitfalls, like typical things that are going to deviate you from actually studying properly. So I just wanted to highlight them. This is not specific to any particular person or any particular statement made by anybody on the group. It's basically a general advice or general points to remember by everyone. First is, there are some students in some or the other conversation, they said that Jhalam Jashwante also does Jashtvam, Jhalam Jashi also does Jashtvam. So I should have freedom to apply whatever sutra I want. So this kind of thinking is a fundamental pitfall. In Vyakarana, you do not have freedom to do whatever you want. If there was a freedom, there was no need to study Ashtadhyayi. At absolutely every step, there is compulsorily a rule defined, and you have to apply that rule. If you think that you have a freedom, it is basically because you are not understanding or comprehending Vyakarana correctly. So you do not have any freedom to apply whatever sutram you want. There is always some or the other way that particular conflict will be resolved, like it happened over here, that in case of Jhalam Jashonte versus Jhalam Jashi, Tripadi Asiddhatva will force you to apply Jhalam Jashonte and not Jhalam Jashi, and therefore there is no freedom to apply Jhalam Jashi. You must apply Jhalam Jashonte. Like that, in other cases also, there will be no freedom to apply whatever sutra you want in Ashtadhyayi Prakriya. So never use these kind of arguments or comments, or never believe this kind of approach. Second is, from such and such website, I learned the following prakriya. There was a Kharavasanyor Visarjaniya Sutra used. Therefore, Kharavasanyor Visarjaniya Sutra is the correct way to apply, and so on. Please do not go to other websites. There are obviously, these are programmatically generated, including Ashtadhyayi.com. I mean, there are numerous mistakes on Ashtadhyayi.com itself. So I'm saying don't even refer to that. Just follow what I'm teaching. Have clear understanding, belief in what I teach, and just follow the PPTs, and you should be good enough. So there might be other websites who might be giving other prakriyas and so on, but for our course, all that you need is a pure single directional focus on what I teach. That will be the best thing that you can do over here. Similarly, the Subandha tables on such and such websites show a form like something something, and therefore this form must be correct. No, a form is correct if you are able to derive it. If you are not able to derive it, it is not correct, or you don't have the sufficient machinery. So, and if you have a doubt, refer to books, for example, or if you have Shabdapatha on Ashtadhyayi.com, most of the 99.99%, I think 100% words are correct over there. I have myself coded the prakriya. If you find a mistake, go and refer to a book. If there is a conflict, come and ask me. But just because some Subanta table somewhere on some website shows a certain form, please do not believe it. The proof of the pudding is in eating. The proof of the correctness of the form is in deriving. So derive, and whatever you can derive, that's the correct form. Finally, there were some comments I felt they are very hilarious. I will apply rules of mathematics like Bodmas and others to combine members in the prakriya, like Dhenu plus art plus am. So then I'll do a bracketing on Dhenu plus art, and then maybe I'll use commutative property, associative property. You don't do any of those things in Vyakarana Shastra. In this particular configuration, understand what each particle means. So art is an agama on am, which means art plus am. You don't even have to write a plus sign over here. So art plus am is a single entity, and therefore that has to be combined first, and then dhenu comes later on. Similarly, in case of upasarga plus say dhatu plus say adagama or plus say tip pratyaya and so on, there is a specific type of grouping that is defined by the Sutrakara with a specific approach of applying pratyayas and so on. So you have to stick to that kind of grouping. Don't use rules of mathematics like Bodmas and others. They are not going to work in Subanta, Tinganta, Krudanta, Prakriya at all. So these were some of the important pitfalls. As I mentioned, these are not to be taken personally. Do not think that I am picking anybody. This is, if one person says this on the group, there are 10 people who believe it but do not say. And I have, after teaching so many years, this is not the first time I am telling all these things. So please do not follow these kind of things. Just follow what is taught in the class, and you should be good enough. Now, if there are any questions, I am happy to take. If there are no questions, we will go to the material of today's class. Okay, there are no questions. So let's now go to the material of today's class. So as I mentioned, what we are doing is we are studying the adeshas of various pratyayas out of the entire 21 pratyayas. So let's actually take a quick look at the list of sutras that we are going to talk. We are going to run over the pratyayas from su, au, jas and so on up to sup all the way towards the end, and we are going to learn what adeshas happen to each of that pratyaya under what circumstances. So this first sutram halgyabhyo dirgha suti se pruktam hal ing rasvat sambuddhe swamor napumsakat and atom. These four sutras are about the su pratyaya, the very first pratyaya. The first three sutras cause the lopa of the su pratyaya in the certain circumstances, and the fourth sutram cause a certain adesha, not a lopa but certain adesha on the su pratyaya. Then the next two sutras are about au and out pratyayasya adeshaha. So both of these sutras convert the au and out to a certain adesha called she. Not to be confused with Haswa Shi, which is the Adesha of Jasa and Shasa. So we have already studied the Sutram Jashasoho Shihi. That is the Haswa Shi Adesha. Whereas what the Sutra number 185 and 186 are doing is the Dirgha Shi Adesha of Au and Out Pratyayas. So these are the two sutras for Au and Out. Then the next Sutram is for Jasa and Shasa. Jasa Shasa Pratyayoho Luk Bhavati. Then the next sutram is about ta, so tritiya ekvachanam, ngasi, so panchami ekvachanam, and ngas, so shashti ekvachanam. Then there is a sutram for tritiya bahuvachanam, bhis. Then there is a sutram for chaturthi ekvachanam, nye. So see, tritiya was here, chaturthi is here, panchami is here, and shashti is here. So that's the tritiya, chaturthi, panchami, shashti ekvachanam. Then tritiya bahuvachanam is bhissa, that's in 189. Then you have directly 6.3 am pratyaya, shashti bahuvachanam. There is some adesha, some agama on that am pratyaya, which is defined in 7155. And finally, there are some adeshas on the nit pratyayas, which is again the chaturthi ekvachanam, panchami ekvachanam, shashti ekvachanam, and saptami ekvachanam. All these are nit pratyayas. So these are the adeshas which we have not yet studied, and these are the ones that I am going to teach today. Itopi अन्ये आदेशाः सन्ति ये अस्माभिः पूर्वम् अधीताः. For example, say ह्रस्व नद्यापो नुट, that nut agama, or say ङेराम नद्याम्निभ्यः, that am adesha, or आण नद्याः, that at agama. All these or jashasoho shrihi, that shri adesha. So all these adeshas and agamas we have already studied from point to point in previous classes. So I am not going to talk about them. I'll just mention them briefly, but not discuss the sutras again. We are going to simply discuss the sutras of these new adeshas. As I mentioned at the beginning of the class, all these are extremely simple sutras, absolutely no shastra. It is just lots of information like mapping. What happens to ta? What happens to nge? What happens to ngasi? What happens to am? So all this extra information is going to be thrown at you. Otherwise, other than that, I mean, there is absolutely no complexity. So let's start. The very first point is the su pratyayadeshaha. The very first sutram, this is not a sutram in the Angadhikara, it is the sutram in the Varnakarya 6168. Halnyabhyo dirghat sutisya pruktam hala. One of the really important sutras. Let's actually go. I want to show you where this sutram is. 6168, just before the Samhita Adhikara starts. So we have studied Checha, Samhitayam, Checha, and so on. Just a little bit before that, we have Halnyabhyo dirgha sutisya pruktam hala and ing hrasvat sambuddhehe. These two consecutive sutras is what we are going to study right now. So the first of them is Halnyabhyo dirgha sutisya pruktam hala. Halanta shabdaha, like marut. Dirgha swarantaha nyanta shabdaha. Nyanta is neep, nish, neem pratyanta words. And dirgha swaranta, like say nadi. So dirgha swarantaha nyanta shabdaha. And dirgha swarantaha abanta shabdaha, like mala is an abanta, tap, dap, chap. So abanta shabdaha. So what three types of words? Halanta shabdaha, say marut. Dirgha swaranta nyanta shabdaha, like nadi. And dirgha swaranta abanta shabdaha, like mala. Etebhyaha vihitasya su pratyasya lopaha bhavati. So the su pratyaya is silently removed. So marut plus su is gone, marut. Nadi plus su is gone, nadi. Mala plus su is gone, mala. Now, why do you say dirgha swaranta nyanta? Once it is nyanta, like nadi and so on, it might be automatically dirgha swaranta, but that's not the case. Similarly, what I'm trying to say over here is that dirgha swaranta need not always mean nyanta, or dirgha swaranta need not always mean abanta. There are words which are dirgha swaranta but not nyanta or abanta. There are words which are not dirgha swaranta but nyanta or abanta. In either of these cases, you do not get the application of this sutram. So let's actually talk about the examples. ये शब्दाः आकारान्ताः इकारान्ताः इत्युक्ते दीर्घस्वरान्ताः सन्ति, परन्तु आबन्ताः ञन्ताः च न सन्ति. One second. परंतु आबन्ताः ञन्ताः च न सन्ति, तेषां विषये अयं लोपः न प्रवर्तते. Somebody gave an example of Lakshmi. That's actually a very good and a correct example, but that is an example of ikaranta. Let's take an example of akaranta before that. You have a word like Gopa. Gopa is akaranta strilinga, but it is not generated by adding a tap pratyay on gop. Rather, it is generated using the dhatu called pa. Gaha palayati sa, the lady who protects the cows. So one who protects the cow herd, or gopala, the female of that. So gaha palayati sa, gopika iti vadamaha. So go iti pratipadikam or subantam plus pa plus which, you get the word gopa. Now this is a bhashita pumska word. We have talked about this earlier also. A man who does this action of protecting the cows is still gopa, and a lady is also called gopa. So gopa plus su, this is a word which is abant, this is a word which is a dirgha swaranta, but it is not abanta. Therefore you do not get a su lopa, you get gopaha. Similarly, say Vishwam Palayati, the goddess who protects the entire Vishwa. Vishwam Palayati, Sa Vishwapa. So Vishwapa, again, Bhashita Pumska word. A male god that protects the Vishwa can be called Vishwapa, same as the goddess. So Vishwapa, tatrapi prathama ekvachanam, Vishwapaha iti bhavati. So that's basically the word which is dirgha swaranta, akaranta, but it is not abanta. Similarly, for dirgha swaranta, ikaranta words, the common example is Lakshmi. So Lakshmi plus su, this is an ikaranta word, but it is not a nyanta word. Therefore, you get Lakshmi, visarga is not removed. And similarly, tantri, the string, you will get tantrihi. In fact, words like gopaha and all that are very rare, but the words in the dirgha ikaranta strilinga family, which are not nyanta, are actually in a significant number of them. And important words, not all, but important words have been captured in a karika which you should memorize. Avi tantri tari lakshmi rishri dhinam unadishu saptanam abhishabdanam sulopo na kadachana. Self-explanatory shloka. It is listing 7 most important words which are dirgha ikaranta but not abanta or nyanta. Avi, tantri, tari, lakshmi. You can find the meanings in the dictionary. Ri, shri and dhi. Are these the only 7 words? No, there are many others. So for example, bhi is there. Bhi is also not abanta or nyanta, but it is dirgha ikaranta. Like that, there will be many words. as a representation, 7 words, or as most prominently used words, 7 words are being shown in this karika. This is not to be considered an exhaustive list, but it is good. I mean, it's better than not knowing any words, or just better than knowing one word called Lakshmi. So at least you know at least 7 words which have visarga at the end of prathama ekvachanam. So avihi, tantrihi, tarihi, lakshmihi, ह्रीहि श्रीहि धीहि सर्वत्र हल्ज्ञाभ्यो दीर्घासुति से पृक्नं हल इति सूत्रं न प्रवर्तते। किमर्थम् इति चेत् एते शब्दाः ईकारान्ताः सन्ति परन्तु ञन्ताः न सन्ति, अतः तेभ्यः भीतस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः न भवति। Reverse is also there. The examples are slightly complex, but there are words which are abantas and which are nyantas, but they are hraswa swaranta. How is it possible? So aap pratyay is always a. Tap, dap, chop, it's all a. So eventually it should be dirgha swaranta. Similarly, neep, nish, neen are all dirgha ikaranta. So eventually it should be dirgha ikaranta. But what happens is, when such words which are originally dirgha akaranta or dirgha ikaranta participate in a samasa, because of certain rules of samasa prakaranam, these last letters become rasva. So here is an example. Nishkrantaha kaushambyaha. So Nishkrantaha kaushambyaha. Kaushambi is a name of a nagari. From that nagari, the person was thrown out. So saha manushyaha kaushambyaha nishkrantaha. Asmin arthe, you can actually do the tatpurusha samasa on nishkranta and kaushambi. Kaushambi is a dirgha ikaranta nyanta word. Kaushambi. When you combine nishkranta plus kaushambi, the resultant word is nishkaushambi with a rasva ikara. That dirgha ikara at the end of kaushambi has become rasva because of the rules of the samasa prakaranam. Now what is happening? Asya samasta padasya ante moola rupena ni pratyaya avashyam asti. So there is a ni pratyaya. Rasvadesha has happened in the prakriya, but there was originally ni pratyaya over there. So technically this is a ni pratyayanta word, and therefore asmat shabda supratyay krute supratyay se lopaha syat, परंतु तादृशः लोपः न भवति। किमर्थं न भवति इति चेत् समासे अत्र अन्तिमसरस्य ह्रस्वादेशे कृते तत्र दीर्घस्वरः अन्ते न विद्यते, अतः हल्याभ्यो दीर्घासुतिस्य पृक्तं हल इति सूत्रस्य अत्र प्रसक्तिः नास्ति, अतः अत्र विसर्गस्य लोपः न भवति, अपितु प्रथमाएकवचनं निष्कौशाम्बिः इत्येव विसर्गेण सह सिद्ध्यति. So that is the sutram for the lopa of prathama ekvachana supratyaya. So if you keep aside words like bala, muni and so on, the handful of pullinga words, in most other words, mainly the strilinga from this particular sutram. So dirgha swaranta, nyanta, dirgha swaranta, abanta. Somebody is writing a comment over here. More or less the strilinga shabdas get this sutra. So if you keep these exceptions like Lakshmi, Tantri, Tari and so on and Gopa, Vishwapa aside, 99.9% strilinga shabdas only dirgha ikaranta and dirgha akaranta, not dirgha ukaranta. Vadhu plus su is still vadhuhu. The vadhu shabda, which is dirgha ukaranta strilinga word, it is not nyanta, it is not abanta, and it is not halanta. Therefore, the halgyabhyu sutram is not applicable. Therefore, nadi plus su is nadi, but vadhu plus su is vadhuhu. The visarga is converted, the su pratyay is getting converted to ra and visarga. So this is the first sutram, halgyabhyo dirghasutisya pruktam hala. The second sutram is eng hrasvat sambuddhehe. Atra sambuddhi samyakasya supratyasya lopaha uktah asti. Sambuddhi samyaka ityukte sambodhanasya prathama ekvachanasya supratyaya. So whatever was told earlier was a general supratyaya. It is applicable to prathama as well as sambodhana. So when you say marutta plus su, this halyabhyo dirgha sutisya puruktam hala will get rid of su in prathama ekvachanam as well as in sambodhana ekvachanam, because that was a general sutram. But now there is this next sutram over here which talks about the removal of the su pratyaya specifically in sambodhana ekvachan only. So this sutram is not applicable for prathama ekvachanam. Kaha sutrasya arthaha? एङ्गन्तात् विहितस्य ए नो चेत् ओ एकारान्तात् नो चेत् ओकारान्तात् इत्युक्ते एङ्गन्तात् विहितस्य ह्रस्वान्ताच्च विहितस्य सो अ इ उ ह्रस्वान्ताच्च विहितस्य संबोधन एकवचनस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः भवति. सो एनी संबोधन एकवचन प्रत्यय which comes after a i u a o, ru also, but there are no examples of ru, so a i u a o is removed. So here is an example. So you have muni plus su. मुनि इत्यत्र अंगकार्यम् आदौ भवति, ह्रस्वस्य गुणः इति गुणे कृते मुने इति जायते. सो मुनि becomes मुने, मुने plus su. Now whether it is muni or mune, it doesn't matter because muni was hraswanta, mune is enganta, but still you have to do the angakarya first. So mune iti sthite mune plus su इत्यत्र एङ्गन्तात् विहितस्य संबोधन एकवचनस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः भवति. सो मुने प्लस सु प्रत्ययस्य लोपे कृते मुने इति रूपं सिद्ध्यति. Similarly, sadhu plus su, sadhu becomes sadho, sadho plus su, एङ्गन्तात् विहितस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य संबोधन एकवचनस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपे कृते टाइपिंग मिस्टेक साधो इति रूपं सिद्ध्यति. बाल प्लस सु ह्रस्वात् विहितस्य संबोधन एकवचनस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपे कृते बाल. नदी प्लस सु अंबार्थ नद्यो ह्रस्वा इति ह्रस्वादेशे कृते नदी प्लस सु इत्यत्र सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपे कृते नदी इति सिद्ध्यति. So these are the examples of eng hrasvat sambuddhe. As I mentioned, sutras are very easy, examples are very easy, no shastra vishaya, is just the amount of information that you will have to revise once or twice and it will get retained. The next sutram is swamor napumsakat. नपुंसकात् विहितस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य अं प्रत्ययस्य च लुक् भवति, लोपः भवति इत्यर्थः. So remember, for the ikaranta and akaranta strilinga the supratyay is gone, for the halanta words the supratyay is gone. Here now napumsakat, all napumsakas, okay, ajanta halanta whatever, so napumsakat vihitasya supratyasya am pratyasya cha luka bhavati. So vari plus su gone, madhu plus su gone. What if I am written am over here? madhu plus su, ha, su pratyasya am pratyasya cha luk bhavati. So napumsakat vihitasya su pratyasya, so prathama ekvachanam plus am pratyasya dvitiya ekvachanam. So vari plus su vari, madhu plus su or madhu plus am madhu, jagat plus su or jagat plus am jagat, payas plus su or payas plus am payas, and then sasajushoru kharvasanu virsajaniya become payaha. So napumsakat vihitasya su pratyasya am pratyasya luk bhavati. One small note. Now if you take a halanta napumsaka word like jagat, so jagat plus su ityatra halghyabhyo dirghasutishya pruktam hala ityapi lopah sambhavati. Why? Because it is halantat vihitah supratyah. So halghyabhyo dirghasutishya pruktam hala ityanena supratyasya lopa avashya sambhavati, parantu tathapi स्वमोर नपुंसकात् इति अंगकार्यमस्ति, अंगकार्यं परत्वात् प्रामुख्येन करणीयम्. अत्र विप्रतिषेधः अस्ति, यू कैन वर्क इट आउट. अतः अत्र परत्वात् 7123 स्वमोर नपुंसकात् इत्यनेन एव अत्र सुप्रत्ययस्य लुक् भवति. The immediate next sutram, I think we discussed these sutras while talking about the badhya badhaka bhava many classes ago. The next sutram, immediately next sutram is atom adanta napumsakat. If you have a hrasva akaranta napumsaka word like say phala, vana, patra, pushpa and so on, hrasva akaranta napumsakalingat vihitasya supratyasya am pratyasya cha am adeshah bhavati. So the general case su would have been removed for all the napumsakas. As a badhaka of that or as an apavada of that, the supratyaya for the hrasva akaranta napumsakalinga words is converted to amma. And similarly, the amma pratyaya, which is dvitiya ekvachanam pratyaya, in general it is removed, but specifically for hrasva akaranta words, amma is converted back to amma. So supratyasya am pratyasya cha amma adeshah bhavati. So phala plus su or amma, both of these pratyas get converted to phala plus amma. Now you have am pratyaya, you apply ami purvaha. ami purvaha iti purvarupa ekadeshe krute phalam iti rupam siddhyati. So these are the three most important sutras of the Supratyaya. There are a few more specific to individual words, but we are not going to talk about them. Whatever 70 words are there in our syllabus, these are the three important sutras. Hal gyabhyo dirgha sutisya pruktam hala, eng hrasvat sambuddhehe, and swamor napumsaka with an apavada of atom. अन्येषु स्थलेषु किं भवति? यत्र सुप्रत्ययस्य कश्चन विशिष्टः आदेशः उक्तः नास्ति तत्र ससजुषोरुः इत्यनेन सुप्रत्ययस्य ऋत्वं, तदनन्तरम् अवसाने परे खर्वसानेर्विसर्जनीय इत्यनेन विसर्गादेशः. सो राम प्लस सुरामः, मुनि प्लस सुमुनिः, लक्ष्मी प्लस सुलक्ष्मीः, तद इति अस्ति. तद प्लस सु अत्र प्रक्रिया भवति काचित्. वी विल सी इट इन द लास्ट क्लास, 50th class of this Subanta module, that is the last class of this module. But finally it is sa plus su. So sa plus ru saha iti bhavati. Vadhu, as I mentioned, vadhu plus su vadhuhu iti bhavati. So anyeshu sthaleshu tatra avasanaha adhyartaha, avasanam adhyartam. So you have assumed an avasanam over there. Agre avasanam asti ched eva rutvasya visargadeshah. Agre avasanam no chet kharvarnah nasti chet visargadesha na bhavati. So if you have Rama plus Su plus Asit, you have Rama plus Ru plus Asit, and then you directly don't convert Ru to Visarga. Why? There is no Avasana or a Khar letter in front. Instead, there is an Akara. So you apply Bho Bhago Go Apurvasya Yoshi. Do not forget what we have learned already. So Ru ityasya yakara deshe krute tadanantaram lopashakalya iti lope krute Ram asit ityeva siddhyati. Parantu yatra etadrisha kopi anya varnah nasti tatra by default or fallback avasanasya grahanam krutva Ru ityasya visargadeshah bhavati. So that's it for the Supratyaya. Here are the sutras. You can go through them on your own. So hal gyabhyo dirgha sutisya pruknam hala, halantat, nyantat, abantat. There is something important that I want to discuss about this sutra. Hal gyabhyo sutra sutisya pruktam hala, halantat, nyantat, abantat cha dirghat. All these things have already been discussed. But look at the list of the pratyas. Su, ti and si. This sutram actually talks about three pratyayas together. Su pratyaya, ti pratyaya, and si pratyaya. So hal ni abhya I have taught this. Halanta, nyanta, and abanta. Dirghat also I have taught this. Hal lupyate, so that hal letter is removed. But su ti si ityukte su pratyayah, ti pratyayah, tatha cha si pratyayah. So this sutram is actually a combined sutram for three pratyayas. Out of that, the ti pratyaya is the ting pratyaya, the first ting pratyaya, tip tasjhi, that's the ti pratyaya. The si pratyaya is the madhyama purusha ekvachana pratyaya. So tip tasjhi sip thastha, that's the si pratyaya. So this is the sutram which combines three pratyayas. Two of these are ting pratyayas and one is the sup pratyaya. So that's what I have written on the next slide. So whatever is over here on this slide is all taught. What is nyantat, what is abantat, what is dirghat nyantat, what is dirghat abantat, why is dirghat necessary, all that we can skip, I have already taught. Let's focus on su, ti and si. Su is su pratyaya, which is the prathama ekvachanasya pratyaya. Ti is a tipa pratyaya, si is a sipa pratyaya, etau dvau ting pratyayau staha. And then there is an additional word in the sutram. Hal gyabhyo dirgha sutisi apruktam hal lupyate. Apruktam. Aprukta is a vyakarana samnya. We have not learned it. We don't need it in the course right now. But aprukta is a samnya given by the sutram aprukta ekal pratyaya. In simplest terms, aprukta means eka varnatmakaha pratyaya. So a pratyaya which has a single letter. When we say single letter, we are saying all the it samnya and so on are gone. Only one letter is remaining. So for example, su is aprukta because ukarasya it samnyayam krutayam sa iti avashishyate. Similarly, au is aprukta because there is only one letter. But jasa is not aprukta because sakarasya it samnyana bhavati. Jakarasya it samnyayam krutayam asa iti avashishyate. So it is two letters. So any pratyaya which has exactly one letter is called aprukta. So what this sutram is saying is that you have the su pratyaya, you have the ti pratyaya, and you have the si pratyaya. When these three pratyayas become aprukta, in that situation you can apply halanyabhyo dirgha sutisya pruktam hal. Now for su pratyaya, this is very obvious because as soon as the itsamyaka ukara goes away, su becomes sa, it is automatically aprukta. So for su pratyaya, aprukta property is right embedded in the pratyaya itself. You don't have to do any efforts. However, when it comes to the ti pratyaya, the ikara of ti pratyaya is not itsamyaka. It is two letters, ta plus e. Similarly, for si pratyaya, it is sa plus e. So, in general, this sutram is not applicable for any random ti pratyaya or si pratyaya. For su pratyaya, it is always applicable because su by default is a single letter pratyaya, aprukta. But for the ti pratyaya and for si pratyaya, you do not get an immediate application of the halgyabhyo dirgha sutram because these are not the aprukta pratyas. However, and you will learn this in the Tinganta Prakriya, that there is some situation where in some cases ikara is removed. Similarly, in some cases the ikara of C is removed. If you recollect the forms of lang lakara, patha iti dhatoh lang lakarasya rupam kim asti apathat, so that e is actually removed. Similarly, for madhyama purusha ekvachanam, apatha, it is technically apathas. E is removed, so original pratyaya was a C. Ikara has been removed. You get apathas, and then sa has become ru and visarga, giving the final form as apatha. So in lang lakara and in other cases, the ikara of the ti pratyaya and si pratyaya is removed. In such a case, if that aprukta ta pratyaya and sa pratyaya, because now it has become aprukta. After one letter is removed, ikara is removed, only ta is remaining, it is now aprukta. So once such aprukta letter comes in front of an halanta entity, the ta and sa will be removed. That's basically the fundamental use of this sutram in the Tinganta Prakaranam. We are not going to look at those examples right now. They are completely out of scope right now. Even when we go to the Tinganta Prakaranam, I am probably not going to teach you this sutram because the examples of this sutram in Tinganta Prakaranam are complex. They are not very simple. But for now, just understand that this sutram is applicable for three pratyayas, su, ti and si. T and C are not aprukta by default. When ikara is removed by some or the other mechanism, they will become aprukta and then they will be used in the Tinganta Prakriya. We do not have to worry about it right now. Right now, we are only going to learn the su part of this sutram. So su tip sip इत्येतेषां प्रत्ययानां स्वरस्य कथंचित् लोपे जाते केवलम् एकवर्णात्मकं रूपं यदवशिष्यते सः अपृक्तः प्रत्ययः सुप्रत्ययस्य उकारस्य संज्ञालोपे कृते अपृक्तः स इति अवशिष्यते तिप् सिप् प्रत्ययोः पकारस्य संज्ञालोपे ततः इकारस्य विशिष्टस्थलेषु इतश्च इति सूत्रेण लोपे कृते अपृक्त त प्लस अपृक्त और अपृक्त स इति अवशिष्यते. So that is the sutisi, and the hal letter of that aprukta pratyaya is removed. So कीदृशः वर्णः हल्ग्याभ्यो दीर्घां सुतिसि अपृक्तः hal varnaha lupyate. Why is hal varna written? Again, you don't need to worry about it right now. It will be clear in advanced studies. There is a purpose in the Tinganta Prakriya, not here in the Subanta Prakriya. But hal varnaha lupyate. So sa, ta and sa. The first sa is of the su pratyaya, the ta is for the tip pratyaya, and the sa is for the sip pratyaya. Ete varnaha lupyante iti atra ashayah. So halantat, dirghanyantat, तथा च दीर्घ आबन्तात् विहितस्य एकवर्णात्मकस्य सुतीसि प्रत्ययस्य व्यञ्जनं लुप्यते. सुप्रत्ययस्य सन्दर्भेण हलन्तात् न्यन्तात् आबन्तात् इति सर्वं सम्भवति. ती and सी प्रत्यय you cannot apply them to ञन्त and आबन्त. So ती प्रत्यय केवल ती तथा सी प्रत्यय केवलं हलन्तात् एव सम्भवति. परन्तु अस्मिन् विषये इदानीं चिन्तनं न कुर्मः. So we will keep the ती and सी प्रत्यय completely aside. Therefore the meaning, partial meaning, अंशात्मकः सूत्रार्थः हलन्तात् ञन्तात् दीर्घज्ञन्तात् तथा च दीर्घ आबन्तात् विहितस्य प्रथम एकवचनस्य सु प्रत्ययस्य लोपः भवति. So example of halanta is marut plus su maruta, mala plus su mala, and nadi plus su nadi. So halanta, dirgha abanta, and dirgha nyanta. And then counter examples: munihi, lakshmihi, vadhuhu, gopaha, nishkaushambihi, atikhatvaha. All these examples have been discussed. Atikhatva is not discussed. Nishkaushambihi is discussed. So atikhatva is exactly again like that only. खट्वाम अतिक्रांतः. So ati plus khatva hraswadeshe krute atikhatva, that is an abanta word, but you do not get, but it is not dirgha, so you do not get a visarga lopa. Sorry, you do not get a su lopa. So atikhatva nishkaushambi इत्यादिषु शब्देषु सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः न भवति. एते यद्यपि ज्ञन्ताः आबन्ताः सन्ति तथापि एते दीर्घाः न सन्ति, दीर्घवर्णान्ताः न सन्ति. अतः अत्र अस्य सूत्रस्य प्रसक्तिः न विद्यते. Then there is a little bit of Shastra Vishaya, optional self-study. Those of you who are interested, please go through this. Now there is the question, do we need this sutram to explain atom in phalam? I don't understand. Atom is a different sutram. So atom will be taught. I discussed atom sutram like 2 minutes ago. Vidyaji, I am not clear. I understand your question. But atom is a sutram that is a separate sutram which we will learn. So if you want to talk, you can raise your hand and talk. Otherwise, we'll go ahead. Vadatu.
Tatra, I feel there's redundancy in that sutra. That's why it's a little confusing. Hal ityapi asti bhavan tyajatu tat iti उक्तवान् परन्तु तत्र अप्रुक्तम् इत्यपि अस्ति तत्र सु इति अस्ति किल तत्र सु इत्यस्य अप्रुक्तमेव भवति किल किमर्थं सु इति एकवारम् उक्तम् अप्रुक्तम् सि इत्येषु एतयोः एव भवति वा
aprukta word is used for T and C. Similarly, hala is also used for T and C. Apruktam tata hala एतयोः सु इत्यस्य कृते प्रयोजनं नास्ति, केवलं ती तथा सि इत्येतयोः कृते एव प्रयोजनम्.
अस्तु, अधुना अवगतम्. धन्यवादः.
रत्नाकरजी.
However, E Pritya and Abantat, they are all dirghas only.
ङी प्रत्यय. So ङी प्रत्यय is dirgha, abanta is dirgha, but samase krute kutrachit hraswadeshah bhavati.
Oh, my question was why specifically mentioned dirgha? That's what
I mentioned here, right? So it's explained over here, right? That samase krute. Let's go back to.
Right. Okay.
Where is it? On this slide or next slide? Dirghat iti kimartam. So nishkaushambi. Actually, we'll go to the slide before this. So. Look at this. ये शब्दाः आबन्ताः ञन्ताः सन्ति परन्तु दीर्घस्वरान्ताः न सन्ति तेषां विषयं लोपः न प्रवर्तते. So this part is explaining why dirgha is needed. Okay, you can read the PPT later. This is basically deriving the nishkaushambi word and it is telling that it is ञन्त but not dirgha. Therefore, atra asya sutrasya prasaktiः nasti. So that completes hal ஞाभ्यो दीर्घासुतिस्य pruktam hal. Agre gacchamaha. The next sutram is eng hrasvat sambuddhehe. Again, the sutra has been taught, the meaning has been taught. Let me just go to the sutram. Eng hrasvat sambuddhehe engantat hrasvantat cha shabdat vihitasya sambodhana ekavachanasya hal varnaha, that is sakaraha, lupyate. So everything, these are sequential sutras. So hal ஞाभ्यो दीर्घासुतिस्य pruktam hal and eng hrasvat sambuddhehe. So everything that is there in the previous sutram is taken as an anuvritti. Eng hrasvat sambuddhehe hal varnaha lupyate. अत्र उदाहरणानि अपि सन्ति, बट वी विल सी इट ऑन द वेबसाइट. सो बाल प्लस सु ह्रस्वान्तात् विहितस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः भवति. नदी प्लस सु अम्बार्तनुद्य ह्रस्वायते ह्रस्वादेशे कृते सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः भवति. मुनि प्लस सु ह्रस्वस्य गुणः इति इकारस्य गुण एकारे कृते एङ् वर्णात् विहितस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः. साधु प्लस सु ओ वर्णात् विहितस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः भवति. So that's एङ् ह्रस्वात् सम्बुद्धेः. नेक्स्ट इज स्वमोर नपुंसकात् नपुंसकात् अंगात् विहितस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य अम् प्रत्ययस्य च लुक् भवति. So वारी plus su gone, madhu plus su gone. Similarly, I have only given su examples, but also is the same. Vari plus su or madhu plus su or manas plus su or So manas and then sasashushoruhu kharavasani vrisajinya will give manaha. Naman plus su, the su pratyay is gone. Naman नकारस्य अग्रे न लोपः प्रातिपदिकान्ते स्थिति लोपे कृते नाम इति सिद्ध्यति. सो दिस इज नॉट अ सर्वनाम स्थान. सो सर्वनाम स्थाने च संबुद्ध इति नान्तस्य अङ्गस्य पदः दीर्घः न संभवति. क्लास नंबर 46. therefore you just get nakara lopah and nama. So this way I can actually edit it right now itself. Su or both of them are applicable here. Su or some of the simplest sutras of Ashtadhyayi actually. The next one is atom. That's an apavada for swamor napumsakat. Adantat angat ityukte hraswa napumsakalinga hraswa akaranta napumsakalinga shabdat vihitasya supratyasya am pratyasya cha am adesha bhavati. So the lopa is being blocked by am adesha. Am adeshe krute ami purva iti purvarupa ekadesha antimam rupam. So phala plus su becomes phala plus am. Similarly vana plus am becomes vana plus am. Vanam iti siddhyati. That completes the discussion on the su pratyaya. Any questions on specifically the su pratyaya? This question, one wants to do mapping for subanta for each pratyas, total 22 pratyas. So 22 in the sense the prakriya for the su pratyaya in prathama ekvachan and sambodhana ekvachan differs. So 22, but then bhyam is repeated, bhyas is repeated, and os is repeated. So eventually it comes out to be 17. Au and out are repeated. So eventually it comes out to be 17. Okay, agre gachamah. So su is done. Au, out, just, shas, ityetesham adeshaha. As I mentioned, sutras are very simple. Aungaha apaha. Abant angat parasya. Tap, dap, chap. Abant angat parasya. Au, out pratyayoho. Shi adeshaha bhavati. So mala plus au or out becomes mala plus shi. Shakarasya itsamnya. Mala plus e. Adgunaha male. So similarly, shale and so on. So male, shale and so on. The immediate next sutram napumsakat cha. So here he is talking about the abanta words. Now in the next sutram he says napumsaka words also. So napumsakalingat parasya au out pratyayoho shi adeshaha bhavati. So phala plus au or out become phala plus shi becomes phala plus e becomes phale. So again adgunaha. Payas plus au or out, payas plus she, payas plus e, payasi. So for napumsakalinga also there is a she adesha, phala plus she or payas plus she. Even for words like vari and so on, you say vari, varini. So there is that dirgha ikara coming at the end. That's because of she pratyaya. There is some other karya which is happening because of which that nakara is also coming in between. I have not taught it. Maybe in the next week we will learn that. But otherwise that she pratyaya is always there. So she adesha is always there. It can be it can be ajanta napumsakalinga like phala, vari, madhu and so on. Or it can be halanta napumsakalinga like jagat. So jagat becomes jagati, payas becomes payasi and so on. Jash, jashasoho shi. Agrimam sutram, we have already learned this. Napumsakalingat parasya jas shas pratyasya shi adeshaha bhavati. Phala plus jas or phala plus shasa, phala plus shi, phala plus e, and then because this is the sarvanama, there will be other sarvanama sthana karyas. Numagamaha bhavati, phala num e, phalani iti rupam bhavati. We have already studied this sutram. The next sutram is Shadbhyo Luk Shat Samyakat Vihitasya. What is a Shat Samya? Shnanta Shat and Daticha. सो नकारान्ताः तथा च शकारान्ताः संख्यावाचकशब्दाः षट्संज्ञकाः सन्ति. सो बेसिकली पंचन, षष्, सप्तन, अष्टन, नवन, दशन and so on up to navadashan. So numbers from 5 to 19 are all called shat, are all called as shat. And similarly kati इति शब्दः अस्ति, हाउ मेनी इत्यस्मिन् अर्थे कति इति शब्दः प्रयुज्यते, सः अपि षट् संज्ञकः अस्ति. ऑल दिस हैज बीन टॉट इन वन ऑफ द इनिशियल क्लासेस, गो बैक एंड रिवाइज. सो षट् संज्ञकात् विहितस्य जस तथा शस प्रत्ययोः लुक् भवति. सो शश प्लस जस, जस प्रत्यय से लुकि कृते शश, पदांत जष्ट्वे षड. पंचन प्लस जस, जस प्रत्यय से लुकि कृते पंचन, नकार लोपे पंच. कति प्लस जस, कति इज ऑल्सो अगेन षट संज्ञक, जस प्रत्यय से लोपे कृते कति. So these are the examples of षड्भ्यो लुक. Let's look at the sutras. औङः आपः. So आबन्तात् अंगात् विहितस्य औ औट् प्रत्ययस्य शी आदेशः भवति. माला प्लस औ, माला प्लस शी, माला प्लस ई, माले. नपुंसकाच्च नपुंसकालिंग शब्दस्य अंगात् विहितस्य औ औट् प्रत्ययस्य शी आदेशः भवति. फल प्लस औ, फल प्लस शी, फल प्लस ई, दीर्घ इकार. Typing mistake, this should be दीर्घ इकार because you have she, so that becomes a दीर्घ इकार after its samnya is removed. On the previous slides also it should be दीर्घ इकार. Let's see what we have. Here, this dirgha ikara is correct. So she becomes dirgha ikara because shakara is removed, the ikara remains as it is. So that's dirgha ikara. So napumsakalinga shabdat vihitasya au out pratyasya shi adesha bhavati. Phala plus shi, phala plus e, phale. Similarly payas becomes payasi. षड्भ्यो लुक, षट् सम्यकात् अंगात् विहितयोः जस् प्रत्ययो लुक भवति. I have explained what षट् संज्ञा is. पंचन प्लस जस पंचन, नकार लोपे कृते पंच. शश प्लस जस शश, जष्ट्वे कृते षड. कति प्लस जस is कति. Any questions on this? रेशमा जी.
Namaste, Mahoday.
Namaste.
I didn't understand that aung. How did that word come, like the previous sutra? This. No,
What?
aung up. No.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Good catch. Yeah. Sorry. Sometimes, these are so basic things that I assume these things. Good you asked. So you have a sutram called aungaha apaha. This one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My mistake. I assumed this. So aung is a short form or is a collection of au and out pratyaya together. So Purvacharyas used the aung as a word as a collection of au and out as two pratyas. That is Prathama Dvivachanam and Dvitiya Dvivachanam. Panini Maharshi just uses them on his own. This is called Samanya Nirdesha. Samanya Nirdesha means just like the way we are using ni as a common reference for neem, nish, neen. Similarly, we are using aap as a common reference for tap, tap, chap. In the same way, Panini Maharshi uses the form aung, which is a common reference for au and out. So I think this is explained on the slide, but I did not teach that. So aung iti au out pratyayyoh सामान्यतः common निर्देशः. अतः अत्र औंग इति शब्दस्य अर्थः औ प्रत्ययः तथा औट् प्रत्ययः. Is this clear now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. This is a question which I don't understand. Can we consider the entire series of sutras in Ashtadhyayi to be considered for sup pratyayas? It's not like that. So for example, halgyabhyo dirgha sutisya pruktam hala is a sutram for sup and think together. So Panini Maharshi is not worried about whether it is a sutram for the sup pratyaya prakriya or a think pratyaya prakriya. He is essentially only worried about alpaksharatvam. So he'll club as much information as he can Therefore, you cannot easily say that this series is only for sup, this series is only for thing, and so on. You can find patterns. So for example, if you go to 7.3, towards the end of 7.3, let's go to. So for example, if you go towards the end of 7.3, you can see the sutras that are specifically for supratyaya all the way listed together. So for example, see Rudascha Panchabhya, Adgargavalayoho, and so on, other Sarvesham, all these are basically for thing. Starting from Ato Dirgo Ye, it's all sup. So Ato Dirgo Ye Supicha, Bhavachani Jalleta, Osicha, Angi Chapa, Sambuddhaucha, Ambarthanadya Rasva, Rasvasya Gunang Jasicha, and so on. So he'll keep on doing that. As soon as the pada ends, Angonastriyam, immediately the next pada, Anauchangi Padhaya Rasva, is in the Tinganta Prakaranam. So the sutras are mixed between Subanta and Tinganta. You can find small groups of sutras that are related to one particular topic. Okay, so that completes Aungaha, Apaha, Napumsakacha, Shadbhyo, Luka, all this is taught. Next is Ta, Bhiz, Nge, Ngasingas, Pratyana, Madeshaha. So these are basically for the Raswa Akaranta words. The Raswa Akaranta words have specific forms, like Rama becomes Ramena, or Ramaya, or Ramata, or Ramasya, or Ramaihi. Very special forms. So these forms are being taken in these next 2-3 sutras. Tagasigasa minatsyaha, very simple sutram. Ta, ngasi, ngasam. Look at the sutra. Ta, ngasi, ngasam. Shashti bahuvachanam. For the 3 pratyayas, in, at, स्याहा. So स्य 3 pratyayas, 3 adeshas, yatha sankhya vidhanam bhavati. Tangasi ngasam, inatsyaha. Ta becomes in. Rama plus ta, Rama plus in, ramena, ramena. Ngasi becomes at. Rama plus ngasi becomes Rama plus at. Savarna dirghe ramat. And ngas, that is Shashti Ekvachanam, becomes a sya. So Rama plus nasa becomes Rama plus sya becomes Ramasya. Very simple. So Rama plus ta, Rama plus ina. Somebody is saying yatha sankyam. Rama plus gasi, Rama plus at, Rama plus ngas becomes Rama plus sya. Next sutram is ato bhisa aisa. ह्रस्व अकारांत अतः ह्रस्व अकारांत शब्दात् विहितस्य भिस् प्रत्ययस्य ऐस् आदेशः भवति. So Rama plus bhis, all these are only ह्रस्व अकारांत. So ta, ngasi, gas are only ह्रस्व अकारांत. Ato bhis ais are ह्रस्व अकारांत, is ह्रस्व अकारांत. So Rama plus bhis becomes Rama plus ais, वृद्धि एकादेशे कृते रामैः. ङेर् यहाँ अदन्तादङ्गात् विहितस्य ङे प्रत्ययस्य, चतुर्थी एकवचनं, ङे प्रत्ययस्य य आदेशः भवति. Rama plus ङे becomes Rama plus य. And then there is a sutram called supicha. We will learn it at some later point, like 2 classes later. That causes a dirghadesha on the anga. So Rama plus ya becomes Rama plus ya becomes Ramaya. So Tagasigasaminasyaha, Atobhisa Ais, and Niryaha. All these sutras are specifically about Hrasvakaranta words. Somebody has written a very interesting comment over here. The comment says, interestingly, this special case is what we get taught in the beginning. So that is actually correct. If you take a high level view of the Subanta Prakriya, the most misbehaving words are Hrasva Akaranta words. If you keep Hrasva Akaranta words outside, the Prakriya follow a very beautiful pattern. So for example, for Ikaranta and Ukaranta words, there is exactly the same set of karyas. Munehe, that's the guna. Sadhoho, that's the guna. So Muni, that's the dirgha. Sadhu, that's the dirgha. Similarly, for Nadi and Mati, the Nadi karyas are identical. In Halanta, the prakriyas, I mean, you have been writing so many prakriyas, now you can actually notice patterns. For most of the cases, it's just Varnamilam. So Marut, Marutam, Maruta, Marute, Marutaha, Marutaha, Maruti. Same for Jagat, 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 and so Jagata, Jagate, and so on. So in all the Halanta words and non-Akaranta words, beautiful patterns can be extracted in the Subanta chart. The most misbehaving words are Rasva Akaranta words, which we ironically consider as most simple and are taught at the very beginning when you study Sanskrit grammar. Technically, they should be taught all the way at the end, saying they are the most difficult ones. But because what happens is, when you teach them in the beginning, people start thinking that Ramena and Ramasya is the norm, and therefore form like Mama or Tava or say Jagat, Jagataha, and so on become complex. So I've seen people, because they are used to do Ramasya, they will say Vishnusya or they will say Jagatasya or Marutasya. So this bad wiring happens because the special case gets taught first. If you teach it in the right way, keep the Akaranta Pullinga words completely at the end, and the teaching will be very simple for the Subanta Prakriya. I actually wanted to speak this and I was waiting for this particular slide. Thankfully, somebody, I was very happy. I saw that message over here. Rasva Akaranta words are the most misbehaved words in the entire Subanta Prakriya. Anyway, this is the sutram tagasigasaminatsyaha hrasvakarantat angat vihitanam tangasingas pratnyanam yatha sankhyam ina atasya adeshaha bhavanti. The next is ato bhis aisa, bhis pratyaya becomes aisa. Next is nyer yaha, ni pratyaya becomes ya. There is only one sutram called supicha, which I have not yet taught, will be taught next week. So supicha iti angasya dirghadeshe krute ramaya iti siddhyati. So many sutras. How many sutras are remaining? 1, 2, 3. 3 sutras are remaining. We are on track. Any questions so far? Okay, just 2 more sutras to study. 3 sutras to learn, but you have already learned Rasvanadhyapunuta. So the next one is Am Pratyasya. Ityukte Shashti Bahuvachanasya Am Pratyasya Nutta Agamaha Rasvanadhyapunuta, which you have already studied. So Rasvantat नद्यन्तात् आबन्ताच्च विहितस्य षष्ठी बहुवचनस्य आम प्रत्ययस्य नुट् आगमः भवति. सो बाल प्लस आम, बाल प्लस नुट प्लस आम, नामी इति दीर्घे. We have studied this sutram. बालानाम. Similarly, nadinam, nadi is nadyanta and abanta is malanam. So dhrasvanadhyapunuta, I think we studied it in the class number 45 of Nadi Samya. If you don't remember, you can go back and revise. The next sutram is interesting. Shat samyakat vihitasya तथा चतुर शब्दात् विहितस्य षष्ठी बहुवचनस्य आम प्रत्ययस्य नुट् आगमः भवति. So the same nut agama, actually consecutive sutras, the same nut agama which was told on the Rasvanta Anga, Nadyanta Anga and Abanta Anga is now told for a special set of words. First is the Chatur word, the number 4. And then you have Shat Samyaka words. Shat Samyaka words, which are they? Numbers starting from 5 to 19 are Shat Samyaka words, and the word Kati is also a Shat Samyaka word. So Shnanta Shata Daticha. So these are Shat Samyaka words. So Shat Samyakat, all these are Halanta words except for Kati. All these are actually Halanta words. So Panchan, Shash, Saptan, Ashtan, Chatur and so on. So Rasvanadhyapunuta is not applicable. For Kati, yes, Rasvanadhyapunuta is applicable, Shat Chaturbhyasya is applicable. So by Paratva, you have to use Shat Chaturbhyasya. So for Shat Samyakat, Chatur Shabdat Vihitasya Shashti Bhavachanasya Am Pratyasya Nut Agamaha Bhavati Etadrushe Nudagame Krute Nam Iti Pratyaya Siddhyati Pratyaya Idanim Nakaradihi Asti Ataha Pratipadikasya Padasamnya Bhavati Padasamnyayam Satyam Anyani Padakaryani Apyagre Sambhavanti. So Pashyamaha, Panchan plus Am, Panchan plus Nut Am, Panchan plus Nam. At this stage, there is a sutram called Nopadhayaha. We will learn it in class number 49, I think. Here, that's the sutram we'll learn in class number 49. Nopadhayaha. So Nopadhayaha iti sutrene upadha dirgha bhavati. So you have Panchan plus Nama. This sutram is not taught. We'll learn it next week. Panchan plus Nam. अत्र किमस्ति? नाम इति नकारादि प्रत्ययः अतः पंचान इत्यस्य पदसंज्ञा न लोप प्रातिपदिकान्तेऽस्ति पदान्तनकारस्य लोपे कृते पंचा प्लस नाम पंचानाम इति भवति. Similarly, शश प्लस आम, शश प्लस नुट प्लस आम, Shasha plus Nam. Now Shasha gets Padasamnya. Jashtve Shada plus Nam. Shtutve Shada plus Nam. And Pratyay Bhasha and Nityam Shannam. We have seen this prakriya in the Sandhi Karyas also. Kati plus Am Kati. Tatra, so Kati plus Am Tatra Nudagame Krute. Kati plus Nutta plus Am. Kati plus Nam. Nami iti dirghe. Kati Nam. And finally, Chatur. Chatur plus Am. Chatur plus Nutta plus Am. Chatur plus Nam. Chatur Nam. And then Rashabhyam Nona Samanapade. Not at Kupwangunum Vyavayepi. Rashabhyam Nona Samanapade. Direct Rephatanantaram Nakara Hasti. अतः रसाभ्याम नून समानपदेत्यनेन नकारस्य नकारादेशे कृते चतुर्णाम इति भवति. So that's the sutram. षट् चतुर्भ्यश्च षट् सम्यकात् अंगात् तथा च चतुर शब्दस्य अंगात् विहितस्य षष्ठी बहुवचनस्य आम प्रत्ययस्य नुट् आगमः भवति. So षट् सम्यकाः शब्दाः पञ्चन् षष् and so on. नुडागमे कृते नाम इत्यस्य नकारादित्वात् प्रकृतेः पदसंज्ञा भवति. अत्र पदकार्याणि जायन्ते. उदाहरणं पञ्चन् प्लस् आम, षष् प्लस् आम, कति प्लस् आम, चतुर् प्लस् आम. I have specifically given these examples. Okay. After this chaturnam in this prakriya, I have specifically quoted achorahabhyam dve because there is a style in the tradition to quote this sutram. Kaumudi also quotes it, and usually people prefer, for some, it's just personal choice, but people prefer the form with the double nakaras. So chaturnam ityatra ra plus na iti asti. Achorahabhyam dve iti rephasya रेफादनन्तरं विद्यमानस्य णकारस्य द्वित्वे कृते चतुर्णाम इति सिद्ध्यति. The reason why Chaturnam is given in Kaubudi is because if you take the next form, which is Saptami Bahuvachanam, Chaturshu. So Chaturnam is Shashti Bahuvachanam and Chaturshu is a Saptami Bahuvachanam. So in case of Chaturnam, the tradition usually invokes Achorahabhyam Dve. It is not compulsory, it is optional. But tradition usually invokes it to create a double nakara. Why? Because they want to show that in the immediate next form, immediate next in the sense the next Bahuvachana form, that is the Saptami Bahuvachana form, in Chaturshu, Achorahabhyam Dve cannot be invoked because of Sharochi. So Sharochi is going to block Achorahabhyam Dve. We have studied this sutram all the way in the Sandhi Prakriya itself. Let me see if I can quickly find it. Where is the dvitva? Look at this. We talked about achorahabhyam dve, we talked about anachicha, and there is a sharochi sutram, achi pare sharaha dve na. So shar iti varnasya ach varne shar, sorry, if there is a sa letter, so chaturshu, so there is a sh over here. This sh letter is not going to be replicated. So achi pare sharaha, shar varnasya dvitvam na bhavati. So chaturnam ityatra nakarasya dvitvam avashyam bhavati, parantu chaturshu atra shakarasya dvitvam na bhavati. So you cannot write chaturshu with a double shakara, but you can write chaturnam with a double nakara. In order to show this difference, the tradition usually quotes the dvitvam in case of Chaturnam, but does not quote Dvitvam in case of Chaturshu. Agare Gachama, so that completes Chaturbhyascha, and then there is a single sutram for the Abanta words. So Yadapaha, Abantat Vihitanam, Nit Pratyayanam, that is 4.1, 5.1, 6.1, 7.1. Nit Pratyanam Yat iti Agamaha Bhavati. So there is a Yat Agama, just like the way Anadyaha has At Agama on the Pratyaya. In the same way, Abantas have Yat Agama, Ya plus At, Yat Agama. So Mala plus Nye, Mala plus A, this Nye Pratyaya gets a Yat Agama. So Yat plus A, Ya plus A, normal Vruddhi Ekadesha. You cannot apply Atascha over here. Atascha is for At Agama. This is not At Agama, this is Yat Agama. So normal Vruddhi Sandhi will happen. So A plus A, Ya plus A, Vruddhi Ekadeshe, Mala Yai, it is Siddhyati. Similarly, Mala plus Ngasi or Ngas, Mala plus Yat plus Asa, Mala plus Ya plus Asa, Savarna Dirghe, Mala Yaha. Finally, Ni Pratyaya, ङि प्रत्ययस्य आदौ ङेरां नद्यां निभ्य इत्यनेन आम् आदेशः भवति. सो ङेः आम् नदी आपनिभ्यः. So there is an आप word over there. आबन्तात् विहितस्य ङि प्रत्ययस्य अपि आप आदेशः भवति. So ङेः आम्, 3 conditions are there. नद्यन्तात्, आबन्तात् and नी शब्दान्तात्. So ङेः आम् नदी आपनिभ्यः. So nadi, we have already seen examples. Here is the example of aap. So mala ityasmat ni iti pratyah vihita asti. Asti ni pratyasya am adeshe krute. Tadanantaram yat agamah bhavati. So again here, you are free to apply. Free in the sense, because they are two different karyas. You can apply yadapaha and then ngiram nadyam nibhya or ngiram nadyam nibhya and yadapa. But the tradition says apply ngiram nadyam nibhya first. So apply ngiram nadyam nibhya. So ni becomes am. Then there is a yadapaha sutram doing a yat agama. So mala plus yat plus am, mala plus ya plus am, savarna dirghe malayam. So that's the last sutra of today's class, yadapaha. So abantat parasya nit pratyayasya yat agamaha bhavati is the same examples. Mala plus ge, you see yat agama. Mala plus ngasi or ngas, you see yat agama. Mala plus ni, you see yat agama. That's all for today. So this is the Abhyasa Pustakasya Puranam. Abhyasa Pustake Vidyamananam tad etad kim इत्येतान् त्रीन् शब्दान् विहाय अन्येषां सर्वेषां शब्दानां. So all 67 words, if you keep actually less, because tada is appearing 3 times, pullinga, strilinga, napumsakalinga. Etad is also appearing 3 times, pullinga, strilinga, napumsakalinga. Kim is appearing 3 times, pullinga, napumsakalinga, strilinga. So 9 words keep aside, 70 minus 9, 61. एतेषां सर्वेषां शब्दानां प्रथमा एकवचनस्य संबोधन एकवचनस्य च प्रक्रिया लेखनीया. Everywhere all that you need is either हल्ज्ञाभ्यो दीर्घासुति से प्रोक्तम हल or एंग ह्रस्वात् संबुद्धेः or स्वमोर नपुंसकात् or अतोम. You will be able to solve these प्रक्रियास. And then adhodhattanam shabdanam sarvaha avashishtaha prakriya. So this thing is going to come now. Now that we are approaching towards the end of the class or end of this particular module, most of the sutras will be taught, which means you are in a position to do all the remaining prakriyas for certain words. So instead of giving directly what prakriyas to do, I'm just going to say sarvaha avashishtaha prakriyaha. So adhodhatnanam shabdanam sarvaha avashishtaha prakriyaha lekhaniyaha. You have rama word, you know now today how to derive it, kati word, shasha word, and so on. This is the abhyasa pustaka work for today. There is a commentary over a question over here. Only the halanta and akaranta plus haha, hu, etc. don't get a nut agama. Wondering why Maharshi chose to not call the pratyaya nam and called it am. So basically the question is, can you call the pratyaya as nam and then get rid of the nakara in most cases? It's at the end of the day, it is his choice, but eventually if you see if you create the pratyaya as nam, then there is the nakaradi pratyaya, which means there is a side effect of having a padasamnya somewhere. So then you will probably have to add additional sutras to say nakarasya lopaha bhavati, lope krute padasamnyayaha prayoga na bhavati, and so on. So I think for the alpaksharatvam, he chose the pratyaya to be am, and adding a nut agama on that am pratyay was actually an easier solution. These are obviously all speculation. You can obviously create alternate set of sutras with nam instead of am, and then you'll have to adjust sutras accordingly, obviously. But then eventually you will be able to create that. But I think for alpaksharatvam, Maharshi chose the am pratyay. Ratnakar Mahoday, you have a question?
I must say it's not actually a doubt. In fact, this is an enigmatic Shastra. Panini has seen almost for every single Varna letter, he made this thing. And then only he made the changes and he explained it. That was really something fantastic by a single person. And he wrote 4,000 sutras. And there is only one other person who wrote another 24,000 lines, if not on Shastra, that Sri Aurobindo wrote 24,000 lines of Savitri. Only these two people I can see. That is one statement I thought I would bring to the class.
Absolutely. I mean, the work that Panini Maharshi has done is phenomenal. If you actually read at some point in time, if we get a chance to read Mahabhasha together, there is so much praise done for Panini by the Bhashyakara. Calls him Bhagavan or calls him Mangalikaha Acharya and so on. So very like what can you say?
It was an
Uncomparable
enigmatic.
work. Enigmatic, uncomparable work. There is no other work that goes near this. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
one more question, Acharya, with all due excuses, you have a different set of teaching or a different module or whatever it is. When I look at certain websites, it is either through LSK system or Siddhanta Kaumudi. But nowhere I found wherein people taught in Ashtadhyayi krama, like Vriddha Rajait, Iko Guna Vriddhi. In that way, no one has taught. Why is it so, Acharya?
So that's because people do teach in the Ashtadhyayi Krama, especially if you go look at the Gurukulas in the North India, they will teach in the Ashtadhyayi Krama. They will teach basically Kashika oriented classes. Kashika is Ashtadhyayi Krama. So when you teach Kashika, it is Ashtadhyayi order, and when you teach Siddhanta Kaumudi, it is Prakriya order. You do see both of them. What you might have seen online is bias towards one over other because of those people who decided to put it online and the other did not. But other than that, if you see Gurukulas in the North India, it's mostly Kashika oriented. If you see Gurukulas in the South, it's mostly Kaumudi oriented. So there are both of these streams still in practice.
Achha. So take first chapter, first adhyaya, first pada, first sutra, then second sutra. Third.
Yes, so Vriddhi Radesh, Adenguna, Iko Gunavadi, exactly in 1.1.1, 1.1.2, 1. Like that till 8.468 they will go sutra by sutra.
I did not come across with such a website.
So this is Kashika order. So I don't know if there are Kashika. There are Vedic Gurukulam websites on YouTube. I think they have this classes.
I think Acharya Pradyumna ji taught.
Correct. Right. So Acharya Pradyumna ji has done a lot of teaching in this particular. He has, I think, taught Kashika or Prathama Vritti, I don't know, also Mahabhashyam. But I think this is a Gurukulam in the north, and I think he has done a really fantastic job in teaching it in the original Krama.
He's a very great scholar indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I was told.
Yeah. He's one of the very, very, very great scholars. Yeah.
Right, Acharya. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And homework is really very huge. I don't know when can I complete that. And
No,
how many days of break you are giving?
I'll give a break after the next week. So today we'll finish 48. Next week, 49 and 50. I'll give a 1 week or 2 week break if you want for completing the homework.
And to be very frank, though in the class.
No, I'll tell you one thing because you have brought this point. People who have been learning Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi or people who have been learning Kaumudi, they will not have as much expertise as you have if they wouldn't have worked out these kind of prakriyas. So not even those who learn Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi and Kaumudi, I know they do not do this kind of hard work or they do not work out each and every prakriya like you people are working out. Therefore, I know this is a hard work, but it's going to pay. And the kind of understanding that you will have for all 70 words and these whatever 200 sutras that we are going to learn, 100 sutras in this module will be much, much better than people who are learning Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi as well.
Though I'm doing Subanta Prakriya, still I'm stuck at 39 or 40th exercise. I have to finish that.
Yeah, that's a state with everybody. I know people are taking stress, pressure. Don't take pressure. It's all for your fun. And we will go slow. So for example, after the 50th class is over, before going to the next module, I actually want to take set of classes where we discuss the Abhyasa Pustakam in the class. So you will complete the Abhyasa Pustakam, and then just like the way we had Sandhi exercises, we will do Abhyasa Pustakam exercises so that the entire Abhyasa Pustakam, the ideal answers of that will get recorded.
Sure, Raj. Thanks so much. And I may be excused for my open comments.
No, that's okay. Yeah. If you don't ask any questions in one class, then there are questions on the group. Why don't you speak? So that's okay. Absolutely. Okay. Any further questions, concerns? You can raise your hand if you want to speak. Otherwise, we will stop. There will be class tomorrow as usual. Tomorrow's class is going to be, I shouldn't say, but it's actually a small class. Subanta Prakriyayam Bha Karyani. So we have talked about the Pada Samnya. Now we are only we have talked about Pada Samnya, Nadi Samnya, Ghi Samnya and so on. One Samnya that we have not touched is the Bha Samnya. So bha samnya is the complementary to pada. So for example, marut plus nge, that pratyay, nge pratyay, that is a pratyay will cause marut to be bha samyaka. So bha karyani, very little karyas are there in subanta prakriya. Bha samya is actually extremely useful in tadhita prakaranam. So when you go to tadhita prakaranam, you will see lots and lots of karyas on the bha samya. But in the subanta prakaranam, very few karyas are there. Out of that, I have selected a small subset. So allopona, vibhasha nishyoho, nasayogad vamantat, that these three form one set. Vaha utha samprasaranacha, these two form one set. And ato dhatoho, that's the third. So technically three karyas. First karya is first three sutras, next karya is next two sutras, and ato dhato. So just three karyas we are going to learn. Class will be easy. If there are no questions, we might be able to finish early. Otherwise, 90 minutes is there, nowhere is going. Anyway, if there are no questions, samapayamaha. श्वः नियमितरूपेण कक्षा भविष्यति. अष्टाध्यायी जगन्माता यस्य चित्तात् समुत्थिता वेदानाम् उपकाराय तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. शब्द ब्रह्म समाराध्य कृतवान्यो विलक्षणं सर्वाश्चर्यमिदं शास्त्रं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलैः शब्दवारिभिः तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. धन्यवाद.